The sun was shining through the glass doors of Luminance Boutique as Jasmine Clark pushed them open. The store smelled like expensive perfume and new clothes. Jasmine had spent the morning helping kids learn to read at the community center, and her simple blue hoodie and jeans still had a small paint stain from art time. But she didn't mind. She was on a mission to find the perfect dress. At 16, Jasmine was already making her parents proud. Next week, she would receive an award for her volunteer work, and she wanted to look her best. Her father had insisted on buying her something special for the occasion, telling her to pick whatever she liked from any store in the city. Jasmine walked slowly between the racks of beautiful clothes, running her fingers over soft fabrics. The dresses here cost more than most people spent on a month's rent, but her dad had been clear this was a special occasion worth celebrating. From behind the counter, Karen Winters watched with narrowed eyes. 2 months into her job as store manager, Karen was determined to impress her bosses. The previous manager had been fired for missing sales targets, and Karen was not going to make the same mistake. In her mind, success meant keeping certain types of customers in and others out. "Can I help you find the exit?" Karen muttered under her breath, watching as Jasmine moved toward the evening wear section. Karen adjusted her crisp white blouse and smoothed her perfectly straight blonde hair. A few other customers browsed nearby, women in expensive suits and designer sunglasses. They glanced occasionally at Jasmine, some with curiosity, others with expressions that matched Karen's disapproval. Jasmine stopped at a rack of formal dresses, her eyes lighting up when she spotted a deep blue gown with small crystals that caught the light. It reminded her of the night sky. She carefully took it from the rack and held it against herself, looking in one of the many mirrors that lined the walls. "That would look beautiful on you," said an older woman shopping nearby, smiling warmly. "Thank you," Jasmine replied, her face brightening. "It's for an award ceremony." Karen's heels clicked sharply against the marble floor as she approached. She had been watching long enough. In her experience, or what she called experience after 8 years in retail, she could spot trouble. And to Karen, a teenage girl in casual clothes admiring a dress worth thousands was definitely trouble. "That's a Valentina Rossi original," Karen said, her voice tight and unfriendly. "It's $4,500. Jasmine nodded. "I know." "I saw the price tag." She continued examining the dress, imagining how it might look on stage when she accepted her award. Karen's patience wore thin. She had important customers to attend to, customers who came in carrying shopping bags from other expensive stores, customers who belonged here. "Look," Karen said, lowering her voice but not enough that nearby shoppers couldn't hear. "This isn't a museum. We don't do browsing here." Jasmine looked up, confused. "I'm not just browsing. My dad said I could pick something out for my award ceremony." Karen gave a small, disbelieving laugh. "Right, and will your dad also be paying with real money? Because this isn't the place for window shopping or trying on things you can't afford." The smile faded from Jasmine's face. "I don't understand. I'm a customer just like anyone else." 2 women nearby had stopped their conversation to watch. Karen became more determined, feeling like she was performing for an audience that would appreciate her protecting the store's exclusive atmosphere. "I think there's a mall about 10 blocks east," Karen said loudly. "They have some nice stores that might be more appropriate for your budget." Jasmine's cheeks burned. "But I can afford." "I'm going to have to ask you to put that dress back and leave," Karen interrupted, holding out her hand for the dress. "We have a certain clientele here, and we reserve the right to refuse service." Jasmine's eyes filled with tears as she carefully returned the dress to the rack. The whispering around her grew louder. She had never felt so humiliated, so judged based on nothing but her appearance. "My dad told me to come here," she said softly, one last attempt to explain. "I'm sure he did, honey," Karen replied with a fake smile. "Now please leave before I call security." Jasmine turned toward the door, wiping away tears with the sleeve of her hoodie. She had almost reached the exit when the door swung open, and a tall man in an expensive suit walked in, his kind eyes immediately finding hers. "Jasmine?" he asked, his smile quickly fading when he saw her tears. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Richard Clark stood in the doorway, his tall frame blocking the afternoon sunlight. He was still holding the coffee he had bought from the cafe next door, planning to surprise his daughter. The smile that had been on his face moments ago disappeared when he saw Jasmine's tears. "Dad," Jasmine said, her voice small with embarrassment and relief. She hadn't expected to see him here. They had planned to meet later, after she had picked out a few options. Richard stepped inside, placing a gentle hand on his daughter's shoulder. "What happened?" he asked again, his eyes moving from Jasmine's face to the inside of the store, where several customers were watching with interest. Before Jasmine could answer, Karen stepped forward with a completely different expression than the one she had worn moments ago. Gone was the cold stare and tight lips. Now she smiled brightly, her customer service mask firmly in place. "Can I help you, sir?" Karen asked, her eyes taking in Richard's perfectly tailored suit, gold watch, and the confident way he carried himself. This, she thought, was the kind of customer luminance needed. Richard ignored her, focused on his daughter. "Jasmine, talk to me," he said softly. Jasmine wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "The manager said I don't belong here," she explained, her voice still shaky. "She told me to leave." Richard's expression hardened. He turned to face Karen, who was now standing uncomfortably close, still wearing her fake smile. "You're the manager?" he asked, his voice calm but cold. "Yes, Karen Winters," she replied, extending her hand. "I'm afraid there was a misunderstanding with your daughter," Richard finished for her. "My daughter, who I sent here specifically to choose a dress for her award ceremony." Karen's hand hung in the air, unshaken, her smile faltered. "Your daughter?" she repeated, her eyes darting between Richard and Jasmine, noticing their shared features for the first time. "Yes," Richard said. "My daughter, who apparently isn't welcome in this store." He looked around at the other customers, some of whom had the decency to look embarrassed for watching the scene unfold. "I'd like to know why." Karen's cheeks flushed red. "Sir, it's not. I didn't," she stammered, searching for words that wouldn't come. "We have certain standards here at Luminance, you understand. When young people come in alone, dressed," she gestured vaguely at Jasmine's casual clothes. "Dressed how?" Richard prompted, his eyebrows raised. A woman with short gray hair who had been shopping nearby stepped closer. "She was perfectly polite," the woman said. "She was looking at a blue dress. I told her it would look lovely on her." "Thank you," Richard nodded to the woman, then turned back to Karen. "So my daughter was behaving appropriately, looking at clothes in a clothing store, and you asked her to leave because—" Karen shifted uncomfortably. "It wasn't personal. I was just doing my job, protecting the store's image." "Interesting," Richard said. "And what image is that exactly?" "One where people are judged by their appearance rather than their character." The store had gone completely quiet. Even the soft background music seemed to have faded away. All eyes were on the three of them, Richard standing tall and protective, Jasmine still near the door, and Karen growing more uncomfortable by the second. "I'd like to speak with the owner," Richard said finally. Karen laughed nervously. "The owner isn't available. But I'm the manager, I have full authority to." "The owner," Richard interrupted, "would be Stella Brands International, correct?" Karen blinked in surprise. "Yes, but—" "And the CEO of Stella Brands would be—" Richard prompted, his voice dangerously soft. "I don't know," Karen admitted. "We were just acquired 3 months ago. I've only been here for 2. Richard reached into his suit jacket and pulled out a business card, handing it to Karen. "Richard Clark," he said as she read the card, her face draining of color. "CEO of Stella Brands International. Jasmine's father. And very, very disappointed in what I'm seeing at one of my stores today." Karen stared at the card, then up at Richard, her mouth opening and closing without making a sound. Around them, whispers erupted as customers realized what was happening. "Now," Richard said, "I think we need to continue this conversation in your office. And then my daughter is going to try on that blue dress she liked, without anyone telling her she doesn't belong here." The walk to Karen's office felt like the longest 30 seconds of her life. Each step on the marble floor echoed in the now silent store. Behind them, customers whispered to each other, some already pulling out their phones. Karen knew this would be all over social media by evening. Richard kept his hand on Jasmine's shoulder as they followed Karen to the back of the store. The office was small but elegant, with a glass desk and framed fashion photographs on the walls. Karen fumbled with her keys, her hands shaking slightly as she unlocked the door. "Please have a seat," she said, gesturing to the 2 chairs facing her desk. Her voice had lost all its previous confidence. Richard pulled out a chair for Jasmine but remained standing himself. "I think I'll stand, thank you," he said. The office suddenly felt very small with his tall frame towering over the desk. Karen sank into her chair. "Mr. Clark, I want to apologize for the misunderstanding." "It wasn't a misunderstanding," Richard cut in. "My daughter was profiled. She was judged based on her appearance and her race." "No, that's not. I would never," Karen stammered. "You wouldn't?" Richard asked. "Then please explain to me what happened out there." Karen looked down at her hands. She's young. She was dressed casually. "We've had issues with teenagers coming in and disturbing customers before." "And did my daughter disturb anyone?" Richard asked. "No," Karen admitted. "Was she loud? Rude? Touching things she shouldn't?" "No." Then what was the problem? Karen had no answer. The 3 of them sat in uncomfortable silence for a moment. Jasmine spoke up, her voice stronger now. "She told me there was a mall 10 blocks away with stores more appropriate for my budget." Richard's eyes narrowed. "Is that right? And how exactly did you determine my daughter's budget by looking at her?" Before Karen could answer, there was a knock at the door. A young man with glasses poked his head in. "Sorry to interrupt, but Ms. Winters, there's a situation on the floor that needs your attention." "Not now, Tyler," Karen said sharply. "Actually," Richard said, "I'd like Tyler to join us." He turned to the young man. "Tyler, I'm Richard Clark, CEO of Stellar Brands." Tyler's eyes widened. "The CEO? Oh, it's an honor, sir." "How long have you worked here, Tyler?" Richard asked. "Almost 3 years, sir," Tyler replied, stepping fully into the office. "And is it store policy to ask customers to leave based on how they're dressed?" Tyler looked confused. "No, sir. We pride ourselves on customer service for everyone who walks through the door. That's in our training manual." Richard nodded. "And does Luminance have a policy about profiling customers?" "Absolutely not," Tyler said firmly. "We had diversity training just last month when Stellar Brands took over. It was actually really good. They'd brought in experts to talk about unconscious bias." Karen's face had gone from pale to bright red. She stared at the surface of her desk as if willing it to swallow her whole. Richard turned to his daughter. "Jasmine, why don't you and Tyler go look at that blue dress you liked? I need a few more minutes with Ms. Winters." Jasmine hesitated. "Dad, it's okay. We can just go." Richard smiled gently at his daughter. "No, sweetheart. You came here to find a dress for your award ceremony, and that's what we're going to do. This is our store as much as anyone else's." Tyler nodded enthusiastically. "I'd be happy to help. We actually have several new designs that just came in yesterday that would look amazing with your complexion." After Jasmine and Tyler left, Richard closed the office door and turned back to Karen. The friendly warmth he had shown his daughter was gone, replaced by the cold stare of a businessman who had just witnessed a serious problem in his company. "Now," he said, sitting down across from Karen, "we're going to talk about exactly what happened today, why it happened, and what we're going to do to make sure it never happens again. Not just for my daughter, but for anyone who walks through those doors." Karen swallowed hard. The gravity of the situation, and her actions, was finally sinking in. She nodded slowly, knowing that her future at Luminance, if she still had one, would never be the same after today. Out on the sales floor, Tyler led Jasmine back to the evening wear section. Some customers had left, but many lingered, pretending to shop while actually watching the drama unfold. Tyler seemed determined to make things right. "I'm really sorry about what happened," he said quietly as they walked. "That's not who we are." Jasmine nodded, still feeling the sting of humiliation. "Does that happen often?" Tyler hesitated. "Not exactly like this, but yeah, sometimes. Karen's only been managing for 2 months. Things were different before she came." They reached the rack where the blue dress still hung. Tyler carefully took it down and held it up. "This really would look amazing on you. Valentina Rossi designs for all body types, not just the runway models." For the first time since entering the store, Jasmine smiled. "Can I try it on?" "Absolutely. The fitting rooms are this way." While Jasmine tried on the dress, Back in the office, Richard was sorting through the mess. He sat across from Karen, his posture relaxed but his eyes intense. "Tell me exactly what happened from the beginning," Richard said. Karen's voice shook slightly. She came in wearing a hoodie and jeans. "Most of our customers are different." "Different how?" "More polished. They look like they can afford our prices." Richard let out a slow breath. "So you decided, based on her clothes, that my daughter couldn't afford to shop here?" "It wasn't just the clothes," Karen said, then immediately regretted her words. "What else was it then?" Richard's voice was dangerously quiet. Karen looked down at her hands. "Nothing. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake." "Yes, you did," Richard agreed. "But I need to know if this is a pattern. Has this happened before?" Karen didn't answer immediately, which was answer enough. Richard pulled out his phone. "I'm going to call Lisa Chen, our head of HR. Then I'm going to review the security footage from today and the past 2 months. We keep it all in the cloud now." Karen's eyes widened with fear. "Mr. Clark, please. I need this job. I have bills, a mortgage." "I understand having financial responsibilities," Richard interrupted. "But I also understand the damage that can happen when people in positions of power act on their biases. My daughter is 16. She was excited to buy a dress for an award ceremony where she's being honored for helping kids learn to read. Instead, she was humiliated." On the sales floor, Jasmine emerged from the fitting room. The deep blue dress fit perfectly, the small crystals catching the light as she moved. Tyler grinned and gave her a thumbs up. "That looks amazing," he said. "Your dad will love it." An older woman nearby, the same one who had spoken kindly to Jasmine earlier, smiled warmly. "You look beautiful, dear. Is it for a special occasion?" "I'm receiving an award next week," Jasmine explained, feeling her confidence return. "For my volunteer work at the Literacy Center." "How wonderful," the woman said. "You know, I'm on the board of the City Arts Foundation. We're always looking for young people willing to volunteer. Would you be interested in learning more?" As Jasmine and the woman chatted, Richard emerged from the office. Karen followed behind him, her face pale and eyes red. Richard smiled when he saw his daughter in the blue dress. "You look stunning," he said, his eyes lighting up with pride. "Is this the one you want?" Jasmine nodded. "It fits perfectly." "Excellent." Richard turned to Karen. "Ms. Winters will be giving you a special discount today, won't you, Ms. Winters?" Karen nodded stiffly. "Yes, of course. In fact, it's on the house." Richard shook his head. "No, we'll pay full price. My daughter isn't looking for handouts. She's a customer like anyone else." He turned to address the remaining customers in the store. "I want to apologize for the scene earlier. I'm Richard Clark, CEO of Stellar Brands, which owns Luminance. What happened today was unacceptable and doesn't reflect our company values." The other shoppers watched with interest. Some nodded in approval. A few had their phones out, recording. Moving forward, Richard continued, "We'll be making some changes to ensure that everyone feels welcome in our stores. Everyone deserves to be treated with respect, regardless of how they look or what they're wearing." As Richard spoke, Jasmine caught Karen's eye. The manager quickly looked away, unable to hold the teenager's gaze. In that brief moment, Jasmine saw something unexpected in Karen's face, not just embarrassment or fear of losing her job, but genuine shame. The next morning, Richard sat in his office downtown, looking out over the city skyline. A stack of reports sat in front of him, printouts of security footage from Luminance Boutique over the past 2 months. Lisa Chen, the head of HR, sat across from him, her face serious. "It's worse than I thought," Richard said, pushing the reports toward her. "Not just with Karen, but a pattern at several of our high-end locations." Lisa nodded as she flipped through the pages. "I've already started reaching out to experts about expanded training programs, but training alone won't fix this." "I agree," Richard said. "We need real change from the top down." His phone buzzed with a text from Jasmine. "Did you see the video yet?" Richard sighed. Just as he feared, someone had posted footage of yesterday's incident online. It had gone viral overnight, with hashtags like #ShoppingWhileBlack and #Luminancerism trending on social media. "I need to address this publicly," Richard told Lisa. "Not just a corporate statement, but something real." This isn't just about bad publicity, it's about doing what's right. Meanwhile, across town, Jasmine sat in her classroom, trying to focus on her history teacher's lecture about the civil rights movement. The timing felt strangely fitting. Her phone kept vibrating in her pocket, messages from friends who had seen the video. When the bell rang, her best friend Zoe rushed over. "Everyone's talking about what happened. Are you okay?" Jasmine nodded. "I'm fine, my dad's handling it." "That was so awful how she treated you," Zoe said. "But the way your dad stood up for you was amazing." As they walked down the hallway, Jasmine noticed other students looking at her, some whispering. A senior she barely knew gave her a thumbs up. "Way to stand your ground," he said as he passed. The attention made Jasmine uncomfortable. She hadn't asked for any of this. She just wanted a dress. After school, Jasmine found her father waiting in the car. "I thought I'd pick you up today," he said as she slid into the passenger seat. "How are you holding up?" "It's weird," Jasmine admitted. "Everyone at school saw the video. I feel like suddenly I'm the face of something much bigger than me." Richard nodded. "That's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. The company lawyers want me to issue a standard apology and move on. But I think we have an opportunity here to make real change." "What kind of change?" Jasmine asked. "I'm thinking about starting a new initiative at all our stores. New policies, better training, maybe even a scholarship program for young people interested in fashion retail from diverse backgrounds." He glanced at his daughter. "But I wanted to get your input first. This affects you too." Jasmine thought for a moment. "I think it's a good idea. But what about Karen?" Richard sighed. "That's the other thing we need to discuss. HR is recommending immediate termination. You're going to fire her." "What do you think I should do?" Richard asked, genuinely curious about his daughter's perspective. Jasmine looked out the window, watching the city pass by. "I was really angry yesterday. Part of me wanted to see her get fired right there in the store." She paused. "But I've been thinking about it a lot since then. Firing her might make us feel better, but does it actually fix anything?" Back at Luminance, Karen sat alone in her office, staring at her computer screen. Her email inbox was flooded with messages from corporate, including a notice of suspension pending investigation. The video had over 1 million views now, and people were leaving hundreds of one-star reviews for the store. Her phone rang. It was her mother. "I just saw the news," her mother said when Karen answered. "What were you thinking?" "I don't know," Karen said truthfully. For the first time, she was really thinking about her actions. "I thought I was doing my job, protecting the store's image. But I was wrong." After hanging up, Karen did something she hadn't done in years. She cried. Not just for herself and her likely lost job, but from a deeper realization about who she had become. That evening, Richard held an emergency meeting with his executive team. They gathered in the company's sleek conference room, tension filling the air. "The lawyers say we should settle quickly if they sue," said the legal director, a nervous man with thinning hair. "Nobody's suing anybody," Richard replied. "But we do need to take responsibility. I've prepared a statement addressing what happened and announcing some changes we'll be implementing immediately." He passed copies around the table. "This is unusually candid," said the marketing director after reading it. "Most companies would try to minimize this." "We're not most companies," Richard replied. "And I'm not interested in minimizing racism. I'm interested in eliminating it." The press conference was scheduled for 10 a.m. at Stella Brands headquarters. By 9:30, the lobby was packed with reporters, their cameras and microphones ready. Richard stood backstage with Jasmine, going over his notes one last time. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked his daughter. "Once we go out there, this becomes an even bigger story." Jasmine nodded. She wore a simple blue dress, not the one from Luminance, but something comfortable from her own closet. "I'm sure. If my face is going to be all over the internet anyway, at least this way we're controlling the message." Richard smiled proudly. "When did you get so wise?" "I had a good teacher," she replied, bumping her shoulder against his. Lisa Chen appeared, clipboard in hand. "We're ready when you are. Karen just arrived." Richard raised his eyebrows. "She came?" "She's in the green room. Said she wants to talk to you both before the press conference, if that's okay." Richard looked at Jasmine, who nodded after a moment's hesitation. They found Karen sitting stiffly on the edge of a couch. She looked different today, smaller somehow, without her manager's confidence. When she saw them, she stood quickly. "Thank you for agreeing to see me," she said. Her voice was hoarse, like she hadn't slept. "I wanted to apologize to you in person, Jasmine. What I did was inexcusable." Jasmine crossed her arms, studying the woman who had humiliated her. "I've spent the last 24 hours thinking about my actions," Karen continued. "I keep telling myself I was just doing my job, protecting the store's image, but that's not true. The truth is ugly. I judged you the moment you walked in, and nothing you could have said or done would have changed my mind." She paused, swallowing hard. "I was raised better than that. I don't know when I became this person." The three of them stood in uncomfortable silence. Finally, Jasmine spoke. "Thank you for saying that. It couldn't have been easy." Karen shook her head. Easy would have been blaming store policy or saying it was a misunderstanding. "This is hard, but it's honest." She turned to Richard. "I understand if you need to fire me, but I want you to know I'm committed to learning from this either way." Richard studied her for a long moment. "We'll talk more after the press conference. Would you be willing to stay?" Karen looked surprised. "You want me there?" "Behind the scenes for now. But yes, I think it's important." Out in the lobby, the buzz of conversation fell silent as Richard and Jasmine walked to the podium. Camera flashes lit up the room. Richard adjusted the microphone and cleared his throat. "Good morning. I'm Richard Clark, CEO of Stella Brands International. This is my daughter, Jasmine. 2 days ago, an incident occurred at our Luminance boutique that was captured on video and has since gone viral. Many of you have seen it. My daughter was profiled, discriminated against, and asked to leave one of our stores based solely on her appearance." Cameras clicked rapidly. Reporters leaned forward. I could stand here and give you the standard corporate response. I could tell you this was the action of one employee who has been disciplined. I could assure you this doesn't reflect our company values. Richard paused. "But that would be dishonest." The room went completely quiet. "The truth is, this incident reflects a culture that exists not just in our stores but across retail and, indeed, across our society. After reviewing security footage from the past 2 months, we found this isn't an isolated incident. Multiple customers have been treated differently based on their appearance, age, or the color of their skin." Whispers spread through the crowd. This was not the damage control they had expected. "Today, I'm announcing 3 immediate changes at Stella Brands. First, we're implementing comprehensive anti-bias training for every employee, from the stockroom to the boardroom. Second, we're creating a new position, Chief Diversity Officer, with real authority to review and change our policies. And third, we're establishing the Luminance Scholarship, which will provide educational opportunities for young people of color interested in careers in fashion and retail." Richard glanced at Jasmine, who nodded encouragingly. "Additionally, we'll be forming a customer advisory board to help us better understand the experiences of all our shoppers. My daughter has agreed to serve as co-chair of this board." A reporter raised her hand. "Will the manager from the video be terminated?" Richard leaned into the microphone. "Personnel decisions will be handled privately. But I will say this, firing one person doesn't solve systemic problems. We're committed to education and growth, not just punishment." Another reporter called out, "Jasmine, what would you like to say to other young people who've experienced similar treatment?" Jasmine hesitated, then stepped up to the microphone. "I tell them what my dad always tells me. You belong any way you choose to be. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise." The room erupted in applause. Richard put his arm around his daughter's shoulders, and for a moment they were just father and daughter again, not the faces of a viral controversy. Behind the scenes, Karen watched on a monitor, tears streaming down her face as she truly understood, perhaps for the first time, the impact of her actions, and the unexpected grace being extended to her. 3 months passed quickly. The summer heat faded into a cool autumn breeze as Jasmine walked toward the newly renovated Luminance boutique. The store looked different now, warmer somehow, with larger windows that invited everyone to look inside. A new sign hung above the entrance. "Everyone welcome." Today was the grand reopening, combined with the launch of the Luminance Scholarship Program. Jasmine smoothed down her blue dress, the same one she had bought that fateful day, and took a deep breath before pushing open the door. Inside, the store was packed with people. News cameras set up in one corner captured the diverse crowd of shoppers, community leaders, and company executives. Jasmine spotted her father near the register, deep in conversation with a young woman in a Luminance uniform. "There she is," Richard said when he saw Jasmine. He waved her over, his face breaking into a proud smile. "Jasmine, this is Sofia Martinez, our new store manager." Sofia extended her hand. "It's an honor to meet you, Jasmine. Your story inspired a lot of changes around here." Jasmine shook Sofia's hand. "The store looks amazing." "We redesigned everything," Sofia explained, gesturing around the space. "Not just how it looks, but how it feels. We want everyone who walks through that door to know they belong here." Richard checked his watch. Almost time for the ceremony. "Are you ready for your speech?" Jasmine nodded, though butterflies fluttered in her stomach. Public speaking had never been her strength, but this cause had become important to her. Near the back of the store, Jasmine noticed a familiar face. Karen stood quietly, looking different than Jasmine remembered. Gone was the tight ponytail and designer suit. Instead, she wore her hair naturally and dressed in simple business casual attire. Jasmine made her way through the crowd. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said when she reached Karen. Karen gave a small smile. "Richard invited me. I wasn't sure if I should come." "I'm glad you did." Karen looked around the transformed store. "It's all so different now." "In a good way," Jasmine said. Karen nodded. "In the best way." She hesitated. "I wanted to tell you, after everything happened, I spent a lot of time thinking about who I'd become. I started volunteering at a community center downtown, working with kids from all backgrounds. It's changed me." Before Jasmine could respond, Richard's voice came over the speaker system, asking everyone to gather for the ceremony. Jasmine gave Karen a small nod before making her way to the front. Richard stood at a small podium, looking out over the crowd. "Thank you all for coming today. 3 months ago, an incident in this store went viral for all the wrong reasons. It would have been easy to issue a standard apology and move on. But sometimes the hard path is the right one." He outlined the changes made at Luminance and throughout Stellar Brands. The new training programs, the diversity initiatives, the scholarship fund that would help 10 students each year pursue careers in fashion and retail. "But perhaps the most important change," Richard continued, "has been in how we think about our responsibilities as business leaders. Companies aren't just places that sell things. They're part of our communities. They help shape our culture. And with that influence comes responsibility." He introduced Jasmine, who stepped up to the microphone nervously. "Hi everyone," she began, her voice shaky at first but growing stronger. 3 months ago, I walked into this store looking for a dress. What I found instead was a painful reminder that some people still judge others based on appearance." She looked out at the diverse faces watching her. But something unexpected happened after that video went viral. I started getting messages from people who'd experienced similar things. People who'd been followed in stores or ignored by staff or asked to leave places where they had every right to be. And I realized this wasn't just about me or one store manager. It was about something bigger. Jasmine glanced at Karen, who stood quietly in the back. "What matters isn't just what happened that day, but what we all chose to do afterward. My dad could have fired people and moved on. I could have stayed angry. But instead, we decided to build something better together." She revealed the scholarship program's first recipients, 5 young people from diverse backgrounds who had dreams of careers in fashion. They joined her on stage, beaming with pride. As applause filled the store, Jasmine caught her father's eye. He winked at her, and she smiled back. What had started as one of the worst days of her life had somehow led to something beautiful. Later, as guests mingled and shopped, Jasmine overheard a teenage girl tell her mother, "I love how this store feels. Like it's really for everyone." And that, Jasmine thought, was the best ending she could have imagined.